36 vozes. 36 voix.
36 voix.
36 voix.
36 voix.
Welcome to 36 Voices, the podcast born out of the desire to question clichés and stereotypes with students from 13 different countries. Because yes, living with 36 different worldviews at Kot Carrefour in Louvain-la-Neuve, Belgium is no easy task. Sometimes, meeting other people can be frightening, upsetting, and difficult, but ultimately, we know that through the new people we meet, we evolve the way in which we view the world. Each month, our team of 5 invites you to meet the people with whom they share their daily lives.
My name is Andrea. I'm Romanian and I will be your host for today's episode. Our guest is Niall. Hello, Niall.
Hi
And
everybody.
thank you for accepting my invitations to today.
My pleasure.
I'm sure that at least a few people who listen to us are interested in an experience like ours, being Erasmus students. What were the reasons behind your decision of leaving the country for a semester? Like, was it difficult? Did you encounter any difficulties with the process? Maybe language barriers, maybe fears of the unknown? And how did you cope with them?
So I think personally, I knew for quite a long time that I wanted to go on an Erasmus. And I think that the reasons for that are quite varied. Mostly because I think it's really important for people to expand their horizons, to meet new people, to engage in a whole new cultural way of life. And for me, Belgium in particular was such an interesting choice because they spoke French. It's like the central part of the European Union. And I don't know, it's a very, we're so often exposed to, French way of living through I learned a bit of French in school and so exposed to the French way of living, and it's very often to see, it's very interesting to see Belgium as another French-speaking country and all of the rich culture that is there.
That's what I wanted to ask you actually. Like, did you know French before you came here? Because, for example, I didn't know any French. So I started learning here, but it's moving so fast because everyone is speaking French here and they're forcing me into speaking it as well. Do you take any courses?
Yeah, so when I was in secondary school, high school, I did do French. I did French for 6 years. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know more French. I really should. So I have a level of French, definitely, but I think a lot of times. But I haven't for the last 3 years. I haven't done any French, but I still have that basic building block that maybe gave me a little bit more confidence when coming to this country than, for example, yourself. And I am taking courses here, and once again, like yourself, you're forced to speak French. People want you to speak French. They love their own language, and they really want you to love it too, I suppose. So I'm being put in situations where I have to learn French. But I will also say that as a native English speaker, I think perhaps you get put in these positions more often because people want to speak to me in English. They want to, like, I'm sometimes a bit of a walking dictionary around here. People asking me for words or asking me to help with things, and people like the opportunity to talk to
someone native,
And sometimes I people come up to me and they want to say hello, and I think, so friendly. What have I done to make these people like me so much? And then I very quickly figure out that maybe they want to learn a bit of English as well.
Maybe they just use you.
Maybe they're using me. That's. But no, generally I would say that it's definitely one of the reasons why I chose Belgium, and in this particular part of Belgium, was because I really wanted to improve my level of French. And since getting here, I've absolutely decided that I want to be as fluent as possible.
I'm also interested, why exactly did you choose Louvain-la-Neuve? Did you know anything about this small city, or maybe you were interested in the fact that a lot of students are here and the city itself has a student life?
After reading about it a bit more, I kind of felt like a strong desire to come here, I think. It's a really interesting place. I mean, it's a vibrant city with lots of students. And then not only is there lots of student life and lots of friends to meet and all of this type of thing, there's also a lovely, a really nice natural element to it. It's a small city, self-contained, and you only have to walk, for 5 minutes, and you end up in this beautiful this beautiful wood.
Yeah, you
You
have everything you need here. You
Yeah.
have the woods, you have the lake, you have the supermarkets, the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, Niall, I know that you came here with a group of friends. Was it easier for you to be here with them? Did you make this decision as a group, or how was it? Do you meet often with them?
I arrived in Louvain-la-Neuve and I met several other Irish people, and I think we've bonded quite well. Especially,
That's great.
I think it's great. Yeah, and it has been probably much easier to, a slice of home is really nice when you move away. It's very important, because otherwise you can feel very detached and a bit alienated, and especially for yourself, I'm sure, with English.
I felt way more comfortable when I met some fellow Romanians here. Yeah, I could speak Romanian, and I could feel like myself a little bit more, and not. And on to the next question, maybe. Who listened to us? A top of 3 or maybe 5 attractions in Ireland, and why are they worth being visited? Yeah.
Okay, and Dublin's a nice city, and I'm from Dublin, so maybe I'm talking I've got a little bit of a bias,
a subjective perspective.
Exactly, but
but that's very important. That's why I'm asking you.
I would say that my perhaps subjective perspective is a little bit negative of Dublin. Not that it's a bad city; it's a lovely city, but I really think, for me personally, the beauty of Ireland doesn't really take place in Dublin. I think, except for maybe art and culture, it's full of culture, it's full of art. But if you go out into the countryside, you get to see the nature. You get to see lots of lovely nature, which is where Ireland really, really, really shines. And you get to go to little pubs and on the edge of the world, basically, and you get to listen to live music and meet interesting people, and you get to explore in this. And it feels, if you ever go to the west of Ireland, or anywhere along the coast, or even anywhere any place in the countryside in Ireland, you'll find you'll find a lot of solitude, a lot of peace, and it will feel very wild and very green. And like, personally, I live in Dublin, but my dad is from Cork, but his family are from County Clare, specifically a little town called Ennistimon and another little town called Liscannor. And a lot of my family are from that particular area, on his side anyway. And I don't know, we spent every summer there, and it's so extraordinarily beautiful. It's a little...
Childhood memories are the best memories, aren't they?
Absolutely. And it's a little... There's a mass that people go to. Everybody in the town goes to one church, and there was a really charismatic priest in that church who was lovely, took care of people, and we'd go every week, and when we were down for the summer.
Wow.
And I don't know, it was something so local and beautiful about it, and you feel like you've got some type of family connection to the place, and just generally positive memories. You're right beside the sea. You can go for lovely drives into the countryside, and you can go swimming in the sea, which is just so wonderful. It's such a nice thing to do.
So the community would be like your second family.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if I could.
Maybe not yours, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could go that far, but I definitely certainly love the slower pace of life that place offers, and I think that's really where you're going to see Irish shine.
I'm also very interested in, what are you guided by when assembling a travel bucket list? Like, what do you look for when choosing a destination? And out of the countries represented by the people living in this Kot, which one would you choose and why? Just to give our listeners a backup story, I think that we have like 16 nationalities here. I could say there are French people, Belgian people, Germans, English people, Spanish, people from Morocco, from Turkey, from Palestine, a lot of countries.
Yeah. Well, in terms of what guides a bucket list, to start, that was the first part of the question, I think. Somewhere interesting, somewhere that has a diverse culture, something that I haven't seen before. You can often, I think it's extraordinarily important for, I think in order to really get a full picture of the world, and also I would add to that, to really be to really build a world that is harmonious and empathetic and peaceful and gets on with one another. I think you really have to learn to appreciate other cultures.
Yeah,
Like,
to appreciate the differences and to see
yeah.
like the beauty in
Yeah.
all the differences there are between us. Yeah.
But I also think as well, when you get to know somebody, I think differences can be extraordinarily polarizing as well. And I think that when you get to know somebody and you become
Yeah.
friends with a person from a completely different culture, it's very easy for you to it's much easier for you to see the similarities in them, the common humanity,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that make us the same. And I think that while still recognizing the beautiful differences at the same time, and I think especially when we see populism rising all over Europe and the rest of the world, and we see the rise of lots of different types of hate. I think it's much more difficult to hate when you can empathize with this person. You understand somebody that's like them. It's very difficult to hate your neighbor if you're friends with your neighbor, or you're friends with somebody that's like your neighbor. If that makes sense, I don't know if it does, but
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to me.
and so I
Yeah.
think personally, I would like to travel somewhere, or on my bucket list of where to travel would be a place to really, I don't know, that would maybe will allow me to meet people that I
Yeah.
have perceptions about that I don't really, aren't really grounded.
You don't really know things about maybe.
Yeah.
And a place that is different from Ireland, like at the opposite pole of Ireland. So maybe an exotic place. I heard you a few days ago that you said that you wanted to go to Morocco, and that would be like your dream destination,
Yeah.
with sun, with hot weather.
Yeah, and I was talking. There's a person here from Morocco, and I was talking to him about it, and he was talking about a very rich and diverse cultural and linguistical and also religious landscape there. And he said that different cities can be entirely different to one another, and different regions can be entirely different too. And I don't know. It seems like such an like a lovely mix of different types of cultures, many of which I would never have encountered otherwise. And here we go, and I've got them all in one place.
Really nice. I have actually eaten some Moroccan food. A girl from the Scots, a good friend of mine, Heba, made us some tagine. And it was very good. Next time she does it, you really have to try it
I will,
before
yes.
going to Morocco. Niall, we have had some very interesting conversations, and I believe we feel the same about the impact that the past history has on a nation's actuality. Did you notice a particular characteristic of the way Irish books are written, or the way that Irish producers reflect Ireland's hardships? Because I will give you an example. There are some very beautiful Romanian songs from the communist period. They made satirical remarks towards the regime, and movies embodied in a very, very delicate way the hardships that people were facing at that time. For example, there's a song called "An Orange" in Romanian by Anda Călugăreanu. You don't know it. I know it. Maybe some Romanian people know it as well. That said, "One day you gave me an orange. We were two kids who had an orange. The whole world was an orange to us. Even the sun itself was an orange." The meaning behind these lyrics is mainly linked to the fact that oranges could not be found during communism, and people stayed in line to get food based on a card that allowed them to take a certain amount of food per person for a day, maybe a week. And some kids didn't even know how an orange looks like because you could hardly afford them. Therefore, I would like to ask you, how is Irish reality reflected in art? Do you have some examples of books or movies that you enjoyed? You talked about Dracula a few days ago.
I don't know how it reflected in Dracula. I mean, Irish literature and film tends to be quite, I'm not an expert in this, so I don't know exactly where. I don't want to speak or anything, but it seems to me that a lot of literature and a lot of books kind of tend to fall into two very, not distinct camps, but often mixing. They often mix. They kind of tend to be quite sad, especially when they reflect on, you know, years of famine and years of British colonial rule. But then I think as well as that, they either tend to deal with it in a very light-hearted way.
Yeah.
Occasionally, sometimes a very effective tool, I suppose, at dealing with the past can be to, and a negative past can be looking for the humor in something.
That's what characterizes you, the Irish people. You're always very happy.
Yeah.
And you approach things very lightheartedly, how you said.
And I think as well as that, just comedy, I suppose, like kind of maybe somewhat, I don't know if it's cynical is the right word, but certainly, yeah, I think comedy and also reflecting on things negatively with you know, with a comedic attitude, and then on top of that, outright sad. There's a lot of sad history in Ireland, not a positive history as well.
Yeah, but every nation has a sad part. Every
Yeah, of
good
course.
part has a bad part of the story. You showed me a band I did not know anything about called the Dubliners. What's your
Yes.
favorite song from the Dubliners?
Well, I think it's a bit disputed whether or not the Dubliners made the song or not, but they definitely sing it all the time. And I think I've mentioned it maybe to you already and a few other people in the cot, but it's called the Whiskey Jar. Not the Whiskey Jar, sorry, the Parting Glass. The Whiskey Jar is another song that one of our cot members loves as well. But the Parting Glass is like a song that people sing at the end of the night, and they put their glasses up and they toast to a good evening, and they say goodbye to one another. And of course, that's a lovely message. It's a beautiful song. And then on top of that, when you consider the backdrop is often to do with, you know, people leaving Ireland for America, and a lot of or Canada or Britain, and a lot of times that the parting glass would be the last glass that, you know, you'd ever share with that person again.
Wow, you brought up a very interesting subject. You know, they say that love is everywhere.
Yes.
And happiness is found in the eyes of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
If it were for you to choose one, what is the best part of it, and why do you love it so much?
I'd say it'd probably be where my dad grew up, and where my dad's family are from, and just because we spent it's called Laoghaire. It's wedged between this town Liscannor and this town Ennistimon that I mentioned, and it's got a lovely beach that you can surf at, like a very long beach, and it's a really good surfing location. And I've got a lot of family around there, but I also have a lot of positive memories of that place. And we went every summer for so long. And that would be the spot.
If it were for me to choose from Ireland, I would choose the people. Because you guys are great. You are so fun. And every Irish guy or girl that I met, they are very welcoming. And you have a really good time with them. Yeah.
I'm glad we're representing the nation well.
Representing Ireland. But as every good side comes with a bad one, I would like to ask you, what are the most common misconceptions about Ireland? And what would you tell to people who believe in them? And yeah, that's it for the moment. What would you tell to people who believe in misconceptions about Ireland? Is it true? Is it not true? Maybe we meet at the middle.
I don't know. It's difficult to tell. I mean, the common perceptions are that Ireland is a nation of drinkers and a nation of drinkers, and sometimes, you know, I think historically there was the perception that the Irish were lazy, and the perception was that the Irish were lazy. And in terms of other things, I mean, it depends on where you're. I mean, the historical context is very important, because when Irish people emigrated for the first time, and a lot of them ended up in the US or in Britain, there was a lot of, you know, quite a bit of in the same way that we see like immigrants today being discriminated against, there was an awful lot of that went on. And then certainly, you know, I'm quite protected from it because I grew up in I was born in 1999, which was the year that the Troubles, that was where the Troubles were a period of time in which Protestant and Catholics battled in the north of Ireland, and there was a lot of terrorism. So I was born in the year that the Good Friday Agreement was signed, which effectively ended the Troubles. I think it's either
I did not know anything about this.
Oh, really? Oh, I can talk about that for a bit. So it's either 1998 or 1999, I think, that the Good Friday Agreement was signed. And so from the 70s until the mid-90s, probably, there was an awful lot of violence in the north, an awful lot of terrorism, an awful lot of bombings, an awful lot of Yeah, an awful lot of bombings. There's bombings in Dublin. There was bombings in the north of Ireland. Car bombs were their speciality, I suppose, and in London as well. And around that time, there was a lot of negative perception of Irish people. And for example, so there's a guy that I knew that's in my college that I knew quite well when I was in school, and his father was but he was a member of what is called the Guildford Four.
Okay.
And there was another case that went on at the same time, but this is the only one that I feel kind of personally connected to. So his dad was a member of the Guildford Four, and he also, I knew that he later wrote an autobiography, and the writer of the book was somebody that I knew as well. And the story is that Guildford, there was a pub in Guildford in England, and it was bombed by the IRA, and it killed lots of people, and it was pretty terrible. But the consensus at the time by the British police was that the general agreement was, or there was a lot of pressure for them to find out the IRA members who'd carried out the attack, and they ended up falsely imprisoning this guy, the four group of Irish people that were living in London at the time, and they knocked on the door and they took them away, and under threat and under an awful lot of pressure, forced them to sign documents that confessed to crimes that they didn't do. And I don't remember how many years they were in prison. I think it was probably a decade or two or something like that. And subsequently they got released. But and there was another case that happened at roughly around the same time. But there was a very much a willful ignorance of the fact that there was growing evidence that suggested that these people signed confessions under duress, and the justice system did not work effectively whatsoever, and imprisoned 4 people in this particular attack, but in another attack another 6 people wrongly, simply because they were Irish and in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, so I think that if you're not Irish, if you don't live there and you get your news from the internet, you might get it very wrong, and you might live with this perception of Irish people for a really long time, which is quite wrong from what you said to us.
Yeah, and I think there was racism as well. I don't think my dad really experienced it that much, but he lived in London for a number of years, and I can't remember exactly when he lived in London. There was definitely a stigmatization about Irish people during the times of the Troubles, because in the same way that there's a stigmatization of Muslim people across the world because of terrorist attacks carried out by organizations that they obviously have nothing to do with.
Yes.
People people committing or insulting people or calling them by derogatory names, filled with hatred because of something that they didn't do, that they had nothing to do with. And in the same way, there was a lot of the same attitudes held towards Irish people that were just living their life in London, for example.
Even if what you said is true and it really happened, one person does not define the whole nation.
Of course, yeah.
So
maybe that is my that would be the misconception that I feel. But to be honest, being somebody that's born up in the aftermath of that, and I found as well that I don't know, I feel like especially in Ireland, history is Ireland's accelerated so quickly in terms of its economic and in terms of its economy and its education, and that's always been and also in terms of its Ireland was a very religious country for so long, and it is quite religious still, but it accelerated very fast in terms of becoming less religious. And I think as well as that, Ireland's a very very globally linked. It's quite strong links in the European Union, and Dublin's a very global city because it's got so many multinational companies. And I think
that's your field of study, right? Forgive me if I'm wrong, but you study economics
and politics. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that's your field. So
yeah.
You know what you're talking about.
I know what I'm talking about. So I think probably all of these factors have kind of accelerated Ireland to a point at which the world that I live in is mostly certainly being from Dublin, is mostly removed from the negative perceptions of Irish people that existed in the Troubles. And to be honest, traveling abroad, I found that a lot of people have positive perceptions of the Irish people, maybe as being fun and as being, nice or whatever, and perhaps not so much in terms of, I don't know if the lazy stereotype persists, but
I've
I don't
never
think
heard
it does.
of the lazy stereotype.
It had to do with, I think I read somewhere during the famine, whoever was somebody there was perceptions. Ireland relied very heavily on the potato, and the potato was also one of the highest calorie output per like effort. Like it was minimized effort and maximized output of calories. So I think that bred perceptions of of being lazy. There was definitely, I don't know, this was like I've watched a few videos and read a few books. There was definitely perceptions in like the 19th century and the 20th century.
Oh, but that's crazy because
Maybe not.
everyone eats potatoes right now.
Everyone
and
eats potatoes.
We love potatoes. We love fries. We just love them. Yeah, living in a cot with 35 other people might be a hard task sometimes, especially during times where you feel like being on your own. But I know that you're a very talkative person, like in a positive way, and usually people have a good laugh whenever you crack a joke. What's your secret on cheering people up? And is it like an Irish thing, an Irish blessing?
I don't know. No, I don't think it's an Irish blessing.
Do you learn jokes by heart from the internet and then you come?
I do.
I caught you.
I do. I mean, I don't think there's any shame in that. I think there's a few jokes. My friends and I love a particular comedian and called Norm Macdonald.
Would you describe yourself as an extrovert or an introvert?
I was actually thinking about this the other day. I really don't. I mean, I think that these labels can be useful. But I think that when we're talking about people, I think we inherently run into like the issue of complexity. And your perception of me is very different to my perception of me. And your perception of others will be very and likewise, your perception of me will be different to other people's perceptions of me. They try to categorize people in these
to label them.
Yeah, but when they try to when you categorize a personality, when a personality inherently flows, then you run into difficulties. And I don't know, I think that if people are expected to be, I don't know, the life of the party or the person who quietly thinks about things in the corner, and not only do they think that about themselves, but that's reinforced socially, then it's very difficult for them to get outside of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that people perceive other people based on their reflection of themselves.
Yeah.
So they would see in you can be such a good person, but they will see in you something else just because they're at bad terms with their own selves. So we don't really have to get things so personal.
Yeah.
If you know who you are. And to end this night, Niall, I would like to ask you one more question, but to put it into context. I remember my first night here in Kot Carrefour. We celebrated the Chinese New Year. I don't know if you remember, but you have to remember it, right?
Yes.
Our colleagues prepared a Chinese dinner, and they made from miso soup to seafood with chicken and pineapple and all this stuff. This leads me to asking you, do you have a specific traditional food? And speaking from the perspective of a girl who loves desserts, what would you recommend to get in an Irish restaurant?
I'm trying to think of anything other than stew.
Stew and beer, right?
Stew and beer, stew and Guinness. And I know that's a jokey thing, but it's probably true. I mean, I'm trying to think of a fry in the morning with a black pudding. Oh, I mean, aside from that, the things, I don't know, anything with dairy. I mean, I don't know. I as I travel more, I can't get out of my head that the Irish are the only ones that do dairy correctly, aside from cheese. I
don't think so. I think Romania does it good as well.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
Really?
I don't know. Irish butter and Irish milk are just the best.
I really want to try the Irish butter.
Just the best. Oh, it's so good. And then, beef. Lots of beef in Ireland. I mean, that's the other thing. Stew, really, I think is the biggest thing. I'm trying to think of an Irish dessert, and is bread and butter pudding? No, that's not Irish. I don't know, to be honest. I think that reminds me of my granny is it's ham, cabbage, potato. And that doesn't sound very interesting, but my God,
but that's a good combination.
It was really nice. Apple pie. She made a lovely apple pie.
So that's a dessert. It is a dessert.
I don't know. It's probably not an. She made her own. She had her own apple tree, and she made apple jelly jam, which is just delicious.
Ooh.
Really sweet jam made fresh from apples.
Thank you for tonight. It has been a great episode and a great conversation with you. I hope that you will be here around more and maybe talk about some other things as well.
Yeah.
Thank you again. It was great.
Thank you. You've been a fantastic host. And I'd love to do this type of thing again. And thank you so much for being so helpful and friendly and putting such an effort in and making such great questions. Yeah.
Thank you for everyone who listened to us. And we are going to see each other on the next episode. Bye-bye.
You have just listened to 36 Voices, a podcast made at the Kot Carrefour. You can find our other episodes on Spotify, SoundCloud, or YouTube. Thanks to Ricardo, Caroline, Damien for the music, Thomas for the logo, and to the others. See you soon! Podcast Carrefour.
Que la niñita duerme, niñita ella, niñita ella.
Podcast Carrefour.